Let's get started with our first news. Sean Strickland apparently made a fighter miss weight. That's right. According to Eric Nick, who shared the story, Sean practically caused a fighter to miss weight just by talking too much. It all started when Sean's teammate Julian Erosa was scheduled to fight Steven Peterson. Now, you have to understand, cutting weight is one of the hardest parts of being a fighter. It's brutal, it's draining, and it takes an insane amount of focus and mental toughness. Fighters will sit in a sauna for hours, sweating every last bit of water out of their bodies just to hit that target weight. And here's Peterson, trying to do exactly that, locked in a battle against his own body inside the sauna. But guess who's in there with him? Sean Strickland. And if you know anything about Sean, you know the guy loves to talk. He just doesn't stop. While Peterson was silently battling dehydration and exhaustion, Sean was firing off question after question after question. He went on what Eric described as a 30-question rant. Imagine that, you're just trying to survive, and this dude is grilling you non-stop. Peterson tried to be polite at first, but eventually he couldn't take it anymore. He snapped and basically said, "Bro, stop talking to me." He needed quiet, he needed focus, but Sean being Sean, he didn't back off. He just kept going, completely oblivious to how much it was messing with Peterson's head. The poor guy was struggling badly. He kept coming in and out of the sauna, trying to find a rhythm, trying to regroup, but the constant distraction made it almost impossible for him to stay locked in. And when you're cutting weight, even the smallest mental slip can throw you way off track. It's not just physical, it's a huge mental battle too, and Peterson's mental focus was getting destroyed by Sean's endless chatter. And sure enough, the next day at weigh-ins, Peterson missed weight by 3 pounds. That's a massive miss at this level. Missing by a pound is bad enough, but 3 pounds? That's brutal. Fighters train for months and then get penalized for missing weight, losing money and credibility. And in this case, you could legitimately argue that Sean played a huge part in that happening. After the weigh-ins, Eric texted Sean and said, "Poor guy just couldn't take you any longer." It's both hilarious and kind of savage when you think about it. Then Eric told Julian after the fight, "Bro, you owe Sean 10% of that purse." Because here's the thing, that when a fighter misses weight, a percentage of their fight purse, usually around 20 to 30%, goes to their opponent. So thanks to Sean's non-stop relentless talking, Julian got a bonus payday without even throwing a punch yet. Think about that for a second. Sean didn't land a punch, didn't throw a kick, didn't even coach anything specific. He just talked someone into missing weight. It's one of the most Sean Strickland things you could possibly imagine. It's pure chaos, and it's absolutely hilarious. At the same time though, it's also a little bit savage. Cutting weight is no joke, and missing weight can seriously mess up a fighter's reputation and career. But with Sean, it wasn't malicious. It was just Sean being Sean. Loud, unfiltered, and completely unaware of the chaos he was creating around him. In the end, Julian Erosa benefited big time, picking up extra cash, and Steven Peterson had to deal with the embarrassment and financial penalty of missing weight, and all because he couldn't get a moment's peace in the sauna with Sean Strickland. It's one of those stories that perfectly captures why Sean is such a unique and unpredictable figure in the world of MMA. Moving on to the second news, Tom Aspinall was recently asked to compare some UFC legends and decide who, in his opinion, has the better legacy. He had to pick between some truly iconic fighters, and honestly, some of his answers might surprise you. First up, Nate Diaz versus Donald Cerrone. Now that's already a tough matchup in terms of fan love and memorable moments. Both guys are absolute warriors who've given us some incredible fights over the years. But Tom didn't hesitate too much. He picked Nate Diaz. It seems like the cult following and the legendary status Nate built over his career, especially after the Conor McGregor fights, left a stronger impression on Tom. Then it got even trickier. Nate Diaz or Jose Aldo. Now this one gave Tom a bit of a pause. He admitted that statistically, when you look at championships, defenses, and overall achievements, Jose Aldo had done a lot more. Aldo was a dominant featherweight champion for years, practically untouchable in his prime. But at the same time, Tom confessed he has a lot of love for the Diaz brothers. They bring that street fight mentality, that realness that fans adore. After thinking it over carefully, Tom decided to go with Jose Aldo because of his incredible championship accomplishments. In terms of pure legacy, Aldo's resume is just too stacked to ignore. Next was Jose Aldo versus Ronda Rousey. This one didn't take Tom long at all. Without hesitation, he picked Jose Aldo again. As important as Ronda Rousey was to bringing women's MMA into the mainstream, and she absolutely changed the game, Tom felt felt that Aldo's career had way more consistency and longevity at the top level. Then came a really interesting one, Jose Aldo versus Khabib Nurmagomedov. Now that is a heavyweight legacy battle. Tom admitted it was tricky. Both guys dominated their weight classes, but in different ways. Tom tried not to let personal opinions get in the way, and after weighing everything, Khabib's undefeated record, his absolute dominance inside the octagon, he went with Khabib. From there, it was Khabib versus Michael Bisping. This one was easy for Tom. He didn't even hesitate on Khabib all day. Even though Bisping had one of the most inspiring late career title wins, Khabib's flawless career and complete dominance were just on another level. Next was Khabib versus Shogun Rua. Again, Tom picked Khabib without much second thought. Shogun was a legend in pride and had an incredible UFC run too, but Khabib's spotless record and sheer dominance kept him ahead. Then it was Khabib versus Chuck Liddell, and this is where things got interesting. For the first time, Tom didn't stick with Khabib. Instead, he picked Chuck Liddell. The Iceman's impact on the sport, his era of knockouts and mainstream popularity, it all weighed heavily for Tom. After that, it was Chuck Liddell versus Ken Shamrock. Tom stayed loyal to Chuck here too. He felt Chuck's run as the face of the UFC during its explosion in popularity made his legacy stronger. Then it was Chuck Liddell versus Royce Gracie. Now, Royce Gracie is an absolute legend in Tom's eyes. Gracie basically put Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu on the map worldwide and helped launch the UFC into existence. Because of that historical importance, Tom picked Gracie. Next up, Royce Gracie versus Anderson Silva. Another monster comparison. Tom admitted this one was tough. Both guys completely changed the game in their own ways. But in the end, Tom leaned toward Anderson because of his unbelievable title reign, his style, his dominance, and how long he stayed at the top. Finally, the ultimate showdown, Anderson Silva versus Georges St-Pierre. The fans have debated this one for years. Tom gave the edge to GSP. He felt that GSP's complete dominance, ability to come back and win another title after a long layoff, and his overall professionalism gave him the slight advantage when it comes to legacy. In the end, it was fascinating to hear Tom's thought process. He clearly respects all these legends, but he had to make some really tough calls along the way. Up next, let's talk about Carlos Prates, who finally broke his silence after his tough loss at UFC Kansas City. Following his decision defeat to Ian Garry, Prates went on social media and issued a heartfelt and emotional message to his fans. He said, "Time to go back home, take care of the body, and come back stronger, like every other time." It was clear that despite the disappointing outcome, Prates was determined to keep his head up and push forward. In his post, Prates made it very clear that he had nothing to complain about. He showed a lot of maturity and professionalism by thanking his coaches, training partners, fans, and everyone else who had supported him throughout his journey. He didn't make any excuses for his performance. However, he did admit that the fight week was extremely tough. He described it as being filled with a lot of anger and a lot of important lessons. He hinted that there were personal struggles going on behind the scenes that fans didn't get to see. Still, instead of dwelling on the negatives, Prates promised to return better than ever. He ended his message with a strong warning to the division, saying, "The nightmare has just begun." However, despite his positive attitude, many fans weren't nearly as supportive. A lot of them took to social media to criticize Prates for his performance, and more specifically, his habits outside the cage. Many pointed fingers at his well-known smoking habit, blaming it for what they felt was a lackluster showing. One fan sarcastically commented, "Needs to smoke more cigarettes for energy." Another wrote, "Bro didn't even show up to the fight." A third added brutally, "You'll always get smoked by fit opponents until you cut out the nicotine habit." And the harsh comments didn't stop there. Another angry fan said, "It's his fault we have to hear Garry yap again and annoy everyone." Fans were not happy about Ian Garry getting another boost of confidence and mic time because of Prates' underwhelming performance. Yet another fan chimed in, "I have no interest in seeing him fight again." There was a general wave of disappointment regarding Prates' low output during the fight. Many fans complained that he kept waiting and waiting for the perfect counterpunch that just never came, instead of taking the initiative and pressing forward. Even former UFC fighter Josh Thompson weighed in on the situation. He didn't hold back either. During a podcast, Thompson said if Prates just stopped smoking, he'd probably have more output. According to Josh, Prates clearly had some good cardio. He wasn't completely gassed out. but by the 5th round, he looked exhausted and sluggish. Josh pointed out that all Prates needed to do was just a little bit more to turn the fight in his favor. Thompson even cited fight stats to back up his point. He said that Prates landed only 4 to 6 strikes per round from rounds 1 through 4. That is an incredibly low number, especially at the UFC level where judges reward consistent activity. In Thompson's eyes, there was just no way the judges could have given Prates the win when he wasn't putting enough volume out there. It's simple. At this level, you need to show aggression, control the pace, and land shots. In the end, Carlos Prates seems determined to make adjustments and come back stronger, but it's clear that if he wants to silence the critics and the doubters, he's going to have to make some serious lifestyle changes and show up with a whole new level of urgency in his next fight. Let's move on to something even more bizarre. You won't believe this one. Ariel Helwani is now being accused of actually sending spies into Islam Makhachev's camp. That's right. According to Makhachev's longtime coach, Javier Mendez, Ariel has moles everywhere. So what's the story? Why would Coach Mendez make such a bold claim? It all comes down to insider knowledge. Apparently, Ariel knew about Islam's next move before even the official sources or the UFC itself reported it. Coach Mendez said Ariel already knew that Islam was planning to wait for the winner of the Bilal Muhammad versus Jack Della Maddalena fight. This was supposed to be top secret information within the camp. Only a handful of people were aware. Yet somehow Ariel got the scoop and broke it to the public. And this isn't even the first time something like this has happened with Ariel. In fact, he's built his whole career around breaking major news before anyone else. His ability to get information so fast has caused massive controversy for years. It's part of why Ariel is both respected and feared in the MMA community. Remember back in 2011, Ariel Helwani was actually fired from UFC press conferences. Why? Because he leaked major announcements like Brock Lesnar's comeback before the UFC could officially reveal it. It wasn't just one leak either. It was several huge fights. Dana White was so furious that he slapped Ariel with a lifetime ban from UFC events. That's how serious it was. Ariel was basically kicked out of the building, treated like public enemy number 1, all because he was always 2 steps ahead of everyone else with the news. Coach Mendez even shared another crazy story that just adds fuel to this whole spy theory. He said that one time, at the gym, Cain Velasquez was doing some wall work, just normal training stuff. Suddenly, disaster struck. Cain's knee gave out, like completely went out on him. It was a big deal, but obviously they tried to keep it quiet at first. They didn't want the media or potential opponents knowing Cain was hurt. But get this, just 2 hours after the injury happened, Ariel Helwani called Javier Mendez, and Ariel wasn't asking random questions. He was specific. He casually asked, "Hey coach, anything happen at the gym today?" Mendez said he played it cool and responded, "No, nothing really." But deep down, he was shocked. He was thinking to himself, how the hell does Ariel know this already? It had literally just happened. Barely anyone knew, yet somehow Ariel already had a lead. That kind of timing and access, it's not normal. It raises a lot of questions. How does he always know what's going on behind closed doors? How is he able to break stories so fast that even fighters and coaches get blindsided by his reports? It's almost like Ariel has a network of spies planted everywhere. Gyms, managers' offices, private group chats, you name it. Coach Mendez jokingly called it moles everywhere. But at this point, a lot of people are wondering just how much of that is a joke and how much of it is real. Love him or hate him, there's no denying that Ariel Helwani is one of the most well-connected reporters in all of MMA. But stories like this just add another layer of mystery and controversy to his already wild career. Now, let's talk about what's next for Ian Garry. Big John McCarthy and Josh Thompson discussed his win over Carlos Prates. Garry controlled most of the fight. His striking, footwork, and composure in the octagon were on point, but things got scary in the final minute. Prates landed a huge shot that rocked Garry bad. For a moment, fans were on edge. It was a clear reminder that no matter how dominant Garry looks, he's still human. That one moment showed that Prates still had power, even in round 5. But despite that scare, Garry's performance proved he's legit. He's dangerously close to earning a title shot. The only loss on Garry's record, a defeat to the undefeated Shavkat Rakhmonov. That speaks volumes. And it's also worth noting, this loss marked the first defeat for a fighter fighter from the Fighting Nerds camp. That team has been known for producing high-level talent, so the loss was a big deal. Josh and Big John gave their breakdown. They said they were expecting a bit more from the fight. John thought Garry would wrestle more and have success with takedowns, but Prates had strong takedown defense, especially against single leg attempts. John said Garry should have transitioned to double legs, and when he finally did, he had a little more success. Still, Prates kept getting back up. That made it hard for Garry to control the fight on the ground. Overall, it was a good fight, entertaining, especially with the dramatic ending. And like John said, people tend to remember how a fight ends. Even if the whole card is lackluster, if the main event is good, fans walk away saying, that was a great night. On the flip side, you could have 14 amazing fights, and if the main event is a snoozer, everyone will say the event sucked. So while the fight had its slow moments, that final flurry of action made a lasting impression. It was a reminder of how unpredictable MMA can be, and how close Garry is to the top of the division.